Hey everybody. Gonna wait a couple minutes for a few other people to come on in. Alrighty. Are you guys able to type in the chat? If so, type your name and something about you, if you're a DJ or producer. Hmm. Okay, let's see. If you guys are able to type in the chat, go for it and type your name and something that you do musically if you're a producer or a DJ. Okay, perfect. It's working now. Awesome. So yeah, if you just joined, type your name and something about you that you do with music. If you're a DJ or producer. Awesome. Hey, Chloe. Hey, Oksana. Oksana. Not sure if I said that right. Callie or Kaylee. Doing my best. Hey, Liv. Cool. House DJ, new producer. Awesome. Hey, Lucy. Keys and sax. Ooh, saxophone. Awesome. Hey, Indigo. Sup, Maddie? Another East Coaster. I'm outside of DC. Monique. Hey, hey. Another Toronto. Hey, Lucy. Hey, Jack. Cellist. Oh, that's so cool. From LA and Berlin. Sweet. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Chloe. Awesome. All right, y'all. If you're just coming in, feel free to type your name in the chat and something you do music or where you're based if you want to share. Um, and I think I'll give us like maybe 2 more minutes. We had a lot of RSVPs, so we'll see who joins us. Awesome. Oh yeah, absolutely. Throw those Instagram handles in. This is the place to link up with other femme artists, producers, DJs, singers, everybody. So go ahead and throw those Instagram handles in there. Hey, Sierra, Philly based. We got a couple Philly people here. Awesome. Sweet. And I will type my handle as well. I'll put it up on the screen in a minute too. Awesome. Philly people in the house. Very cool. Very cool. All right, guys. Well, I am gonna jump in. If you're still joining us, feel free to type your name in the chat and something you do with music. If you're a producer, DJ, singer-songwriter, if you play any instruments. Yeah, everyone feel free to throw those Instagram handles in there so we can all link up. Great to meet everyone. I am so happy to be here. If you guys have done a Femme House session before, then, welcome back. If this is your first one, then welcome. This is my first Femme House session that I'm presenting on. So I'm really happy to be here and super excited about this whole mission and everything that this project means. So it's a really cool space, and we're going to get super nerdy about music theory today. I might need to add some permissions here just for later for when we do some questions out loud. Settings. Hey, Jamie. Nice to meet ya. All right. Sweet. Well, I am going to go ahead and get started. And as we go in this presentation, if you have any questions or something's not making sense, feel free to use the raise your hand function. later on when we do share out, but I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions as I go with the presentation, feel free to type them in the chat. Music theory is one of those things where it kind of builds on itself. So if you're not understanding one piece, I want to make sure we like come back to it before we move on. Okay, cool. So let me share out my screen here. Just want to do this. Cool. Awesome. Let's see, still sharing. Perfect. Okie doke. So you guys can see my screen and we'll do full screen for a moment. Okay. So, hey everybody. My name is Kara Levchenko, and this is Music Theory for Producers with FemHouse. Welcome, welcome. So I'm going to start just by telling you guys a little bit about myself. So I have been making music for basically my whole life, but I didn't have a way to record it when I was a kid, so I just make up songs. But I've been singing in chorus, doing musicals, and doing show choir, and basically anything that required me to sing. I was there as a kid. So grew up singing, loving music, and it prompted me to become a choir teacher. So I went to James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and I went to school for music education. And after that, I taught choir as well as guitar and like general music classes and musical theater in high school. I taught elementary school for like 1 year, but for the most part, I've been with high school. And currently, I teach at the Madeira School, which is a private school in McLean, Virginia. And I work there part-time, and then I'm an artist the other half, I'm basically a full-time artist, and then I also have a part-time job. I don't know if any of you all know how that feels. But I recently started learning how to DJ, but I've been producing for a few years now. DJing's a blast. I know we have a couple new DJs in the chat. Hopefully we have some returners too. Love to learn a thing or two from y'all. But yeah, I was mainly interested in creating songs on my own from scratch and kind of taking my like classical music knowledge that I got in my undergrad and then also in my master's, and using that to make current music, to make dance music, to make pop music, electronic music, just high energy, fun stuff. And it's very different than like opera and classical music, which is what I was taught. So I have kind of like a classic musical theater and music theory background, but then I'm a producer of popular and electronic music. So I sort of live in two worlds, but I think it's really fun, and both kind of serve different purposes for each other. You guys can find me on Instagram. I'm kara.levchenko. Also on all the other platforms as well. I have a website, and you guys can find my music too on SoundCloud, Spotify, or Apple Music. I just put out my first remix a couple weeks ago of an Ariana Grande song. So it's a house remix for anybody who's feeling some house. But thank you all for following along. I'm so glad you're here, and let's get to it. Okay, so again, as I said, I'm going to try to check the chat as we go, so that I can actually, let me just do that now so that I'm not ignoring y'all. Oh yeah, totally. Let me see if I can record it for you guys. Pause recording. Oh, yeah, we are recording, so we're good. No worry, Kansas. Perfect. Okay, cool. So type your questions in the chat as we go. Because a lot of this is going to build upon itself and it's going to be a little crazy. So if anything doesn't make sense, please give me a shout. What was your Insta? I will put it in the chat for y'all. It is Kara Levchenko. Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Also, no, there are no such thing as dumb questions, by the way. So if you have any questions, please feel free. All right, so what we're going to go over today is we're going to go over keys, key signatures, and scales. We're going to talk about the circle of fifths or the Camelot wheel. If you are into DJing, you might already know about that, and relative keys. Then we're going to jump into chord progressions. We're going to talk about seventh chords and ninths. And then we're going to talk modulations, give a couple examples, and we'll do questions at the end. All right, so to talk music theory, it really is pretty impossible to talk about it without talking about the piano. So I'm sure y'all have seen this before if you've done any like digging into music theory basics. or if you play piano yourself, if you play, I know a couple of y'all play cello and saxophone, so some of y'all probably have read sheet music too. We're not going to do too much sheet music today, but we are going to do a lot of piano stuff because it's a very visual way to see and conceptualize music theory. So here's our piano we're going to be working with. I'll come back to this as we go. But what's important to know is that the piano is built up of white keys and black keys. The white keys are the natural notes, and then the black keys have sharps or flats. The sharp is used to describe the note if we're like going up in pitch, and then if we're going down in pitch, it's flats, and they sort of serve a different purpose depending on the key you're in. Don't think too hard about it because it gets a little crazy. But yeah, basically there's two black keys, and then there's a cluster of three black keys, and surrounding that are the white keys. And you take a look at the two black keys, and the white note to the left of the bottom one is always going to be C in the pattern. So if you're looking at a piano trying to find C, which we're going to talk about a lot, you look for the two black keys, go to the left, that white note is going to be C. All right. So we can't talk about scales and chord progressions and all that fun stuff without talking about how we build a scale. And really, it all comes back to whole steps and half steps. Even in the way that we choose our chords and the way we write them in MIDI, in our DAW, for example, it all comes back to whether you're resolving by a half step or a whole step, or you're doing a jump that's bigger than that. But when we're thinking about scales, all a scale is a collection of notes, and the notes have either a half step or a whole step relationship. And so there's a ton of different combinations, and that's how we get scales. So a half step is when you are going from one note on the piano to the next closest possible note, whether it's up or down, but there's like no notes in between. So that's a half step. And then a whole step is basically just two half steps put together. So it's like skipping the next note in between. And so that's a whole step. So the C major scale, we're going to talk about C a lot, but the major scale is built up of this pattern: whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And so every major scale, whatever note you start on, these are the relationships between the notes to make the scale. Now, if you guys have been working in your DAWs, then you've probably discovered that there's a function where, I think this is true of all DAWs. I don't know about FL Studio, but I know about Ableton and Logic, where you can assign the scale to the MIDI so that you can actually just see all the notes on the piano roll that are in the key that you're in. So you don't even really have to know the scales. It's pretty cool that they just give you that. But I think it's good to know what makes a scale, so that if you want to break the rules, quote unquote, there are really no rules because this is music, but knowing the rules that, our ears are used to hearing, these patterns in music that occur so much. That's what I mean when I say rules. Knowing how to break them and go away from them and do something cooler is a little bit easier if you understand the foundation. So that is a really cool tool in your DAW, and I definitely advise you use it. But we're going to break down what makes the scales. So if we visualize a C major scale, it's pretty happy sounding, this scale. Did you guys hear that piano at all? Just somebody give me a shout if you did hear it. A bit, yeah. Okay. Cool. Only half of the notes. Okay, let me try changing a setting real quick for the audio. Background. I don't want it on noise removal. What happens if I do this? Did you guys hear that? Okay, sweet, better. Awesome. Yay. Thank y'all. I appreciate you. Okay, sweet. So major scale, really simple. We're using C major to talk about it just because it's all the white keys, which is a lot easier to visualize. But as y'all can see, the half steps are between the third and the fourth note and the seventh and eighth note in the scale. And the eighth note is really just the first note because we're back at C. There's only 7 notes in the scale. So there's our C major scale. Now, this is kind of like the super nerdy music moment, and I hope I don't lose anybody, but Ionian is another word for major scale. And Basically, all this means is that, again, like I said, you can change where the half steps are in the scale. So, like when we were looking at C major, the half steps fell between the third and fourth note and the seventh and eighth note. But what happens if we want to put the half steps in a different place, right? So, there are different combinations. There are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of scales you could play, and we just call them modes in music theory. And if we were just talking about the white notes on the piano, it would actually show you the relationships between all of these. So it's kind of hard to see. I have like a diagram down here, but Ionian or major is the happy scale. And then Dorian, so if you start on D and just play all the white notes from D to D, now we're moving where the half steps fall in the scale. So it's a little bit spookier. It's almost minor, but not quite. Dorian is used in like the folk song like Scarborough Fair, if you guys know that song. Yeah. It's kind of crazy, but I like thinking about it this way with the white notes because then you can see the relationships without having to learn any of the scales. So it just kind of tells you, or modes, sorry. They're scales, modes. I think of them as the same thing, but I guess technically they're not. Okay, Phrygian is the one below Dorian. Phrygian's actually used in a lot of like bass music, I feel like, because it's extra spooky. It has a half step at the beginning. So here's what that one sounds like. Phrygian's super cool. So very dark. And then we've got Lydian, which is like more of a major sound. And honestly, it's not used as much as I would say like Dorian and Phrygian is. These different modes start with a different root note. Yeah, so I'm using the example of using only white keys on the piano, but you could start these modes on any key on the piano. And basically, if you start it on this white note that's showing in the picture, then you can draw out where the whole and half steps are. And if I had more time, I totally would have drawn those half steps and whole steps for y'all so you could visualize it. But you can really move it to any place on the piano. Okay, so Lydian and Mixolydian, they're kind of like more happy sounding. So that's Lydian, and then Mixolydian. They're really close to major. They're like super major. Okay, Aeolian. This is basically minor. So a lot of dance music thrives with minor and pop music too, I would say. So Aeolian or minor, natural minor, probably sounds super familiar to you guys. So that's our natural minor scale or our Aeolian mode. Okay, cool. So there are a ton of options, right? Already we see like so many scales. But I will say, oh yeah, we went through Phrygian. I will say that most scales that you hear in music tend to be either major or minor. And then Phrygian, definitely in the dance space, we hear that one a lot. And then Dorian probably too. So those are the ones we hear the most. But pretty much just minor and major are going to be the main ones. Okay, so looking a little bit closer at the minor scale, we've moved where our half steps are now, so we hear the half step earlier than we did in the major scale. So are each of these staying in the white keys only? Yeah, in my mode example, those were only on the white keys. It was like using the white keys to build all of the modes, to see all the different combinations of how you can order the whole steps and half steps. But you can build them on the black keys too. Okay, so looking at the minor scale, this one is a lot more spooky, the Aeolian scale. And this time, instead of playing it on the white keys, I'm showing you guys the progression starting on C. So C major, if we went back, was all the white keys here. And we noticed that the half steps are between the third and fourth note and the seventh and eighth note. So what I do to change this from major to minor is I'm just changing 3 notes. So I take the third note, I'm bringing it down a half step. I'm going to take the 6th note, bring that down a half step, and also the 7th note. And so now, if we try to play C minor, changing those pitches, spooky. Type in the chat if you like major or minor better. I think I like minor better, but it really depends. So we got major. And we got minor. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Alrighty. So, just a little bit more into talking about how these relate to each other. Oh, I'm so glad that I explained modes for you. Wait, that makes me so happy. Modes can be really confusing. People get very in their bag about modes, but they're really just a bunch of different types of scales. And it's crazy because we really only use like 2 of them in most music, and I do think that's pretty wild. But those are like, I don't know, I feel like humans like the major and minor the best, the Aeolian and the Ionian. Okay, so now this is one of my favorite parts. We're going to get back to the Camelot wheel and why it matters. So thinking about our major scale, going back to C major, all the white notes on the piano. Looking at C major, if we call C 1, now we're just imagining because that's the note we're going to start the scale on, that's the scale's name, we're going to call it 1. If you go to the 6th note in any major scale and you build the same scale, all the same notes, but you start on that note instead, that would be its relative minor. Okay, I'm going to say that in a different way because I feel like that was convoluted. All right, so C major's relative minor is A minor. You guys can see it in this photo here, little screenshot of the Camelot wheel. And the reason that is the way that it is because basically we're just moving where the half steps and whole steps go in the scale, right? So if we start a scale on C, we have a whole step, another whole step, and then a half step, right? But if we start the scale on A instead, still only playing the white notes, then we've moved where the half steps go, right? And again, it all comes back to whole steps and half steps. Where we place those half steps causes dissonance, and it's like, you know, it's spicy to our ear. We're like, ooh, what's that? Like, that's different and cool. So where we place it kind of determines the mood, all right? But we call these relative keys because they share the exact same notes. So C major and A minor, if I were to like try to mix 2 of those songs in a DJ set, it would work because they have all the same notes. Now it gets a little weird because when you talk about chords that happen in A minor, there are a couple other options that are like extra spicy, and those could clash with things in C major, so it sort of depends on the song. But in general, it's a good rule. That's why 8B and 8A are labeled the way they are on the Camelot wheels, because they share the exact same scale. We're just starting the scale in a different place. They share the exact same notes. We're just starting the scale in a different spot. Okay. So A minor, it's the exact same as C major. It's just that it's built around A instead of being built around C. Okay, cool. So those are our relative keys. Yeah, super crazy. And we just call these key signatures. And the reason that we do is because if you look at the Camelot wheel, it's kind of strange because Camelot wheel puts E at the top, and then in the circle of fists it puts C, and I think it does make more sense to think about it this way, and I'll explain why. Because if, coming back to those cello and saxophone people, though I guess cello reads a different clef, but coming back to that sheet music kind of stuff, same notes exactly, or some major and minor with the same notes. Same notes exactly. So C major is all the white notes on the keyboard. And then A minor is also all the white notes on the keyboard. It's just that we're building the scale around A instead of around C. So we moved where the half steps happen, so it sounds spookier, but they share all the same notes, which is why you can mix them together really easy. They're relatives. Same scale, different starting note. Yeah, that's how you could think about it too. Yeah, super cool. So C major's relative minor is A minor. So if you try to move from one song to another, that's a really smooth transition because they share all the same notes. Okay, now looking over one, if we're talking about the circle of fifths or the Camelot wheel, it's the same way. This one just shows it to you visually. Oh my God, I am gonna get into seventh and diminished. Yes, I am headed there. Um, so if you look at the number of sharps or flats, just the number of black keys that are in that scale, G major has one, and it's a sharp, and then F major has one flat. So these are the most closely related keys to C because their scale, they share almost all the same notes, but they have one different. So that's why they're close to C, and that those mixing transitions would also sound really good because they share almost all the same notes. All right. So again, the Camelot wheel, circle fifths, however you like to think about it, it's really the same concept. And yeah, I do wish that they made a Camelot wheel where C was on top though, because I do think that makes more sense. But either way. Okay, so going on, now we're going to talk chords. This is where we're going to get more into talking about different types of chords, how you can spice them up, make them more fun, and we'll do some listening and some examples and some songs. So again, coming back to if you've worked in your DAW, I agree. I think that would be a better Camelot wheel. If you came into your DAW and you said, all right, I'm in C major, your DAW is going to highlight for you all of the notes in the scale on the piano roll, so you can really easily see how to build chords. You would already kind of know this, but there is something called the every other trick, and how I like to think about that is, if you know the scale, you know all the notes in the scale, to build a chord, you just start on one note, skip a note, go to the next one, skip one more, go to the next one. If you fooled around with a piano at all, you've probably maybe figured this out. So C major. I played C, E, G, so I skipped a note in between. All right, so now I'm playing chords that appear in the key of C major. So here's a chord, D minor, and it has all the notes that are in C major. And E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. So if you're working in C major in Ableton and you find a sample that's in A minor, it's fine. Oh, this is such an interesting question. Honestly, it depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think if it's a drone, it would probably work. But it really depends on what it is. If it's a melody that feels very minor, that might not work in a C major song. But if you were just using it over an A minor chord in the song, then it probably would work. And it's one of those things where sometimes you just got to drag it in and like see. But yeah, if you found a sample that's in the relative minor or major, it's going to be pretty darn close. So you might as well try if you really like the sample, or you can also like change the key of your song. But that's a really good way to start, is to look for things in the relative minor. Alrighty, so I promise we'll stop getting so in the weeds, but just for my super music theory nerds, I like to say learn the rules so that you can break them. They're really not rules. They're just like patterns that our ears really like. And so basically if I assign all of the chords in a key, so C major, I'm calling that the one chord because we're in C, so I'm going to call C1. I'm going to call the D minor chord a 2 chord, the E minor a 3, and so on. So I'm just giving them numbers so that we can look at the progressions. Okay, so if C was 1, that means E is going to be 3. So that's where I'm getting these Roman numerals from. Now, what makes it minor versus major versus diminished and all this stuff, we're going to get into that right after this. But just so y'all can hear some progressions and like what they feel like, because we've been doing a lot of chatting, just kind of like sounds. So we've got, if I played this progression, I'm going to play the top. So I'll play 2 and 5, D minor and G. I'm playing a major progression here. Pretty simple, pretty familiar, probably sounds like something you've heard before. I really just played it from start to finish. But you can totally switch it up. Instead of starting all the way on the E minor, I could choose to just start on the 4. I could start on F, and then after that I can go to G and go to 5, and then I can go to 1. That's a really common one. There are some songs that are like just those chords. So that's the major. Now, if we get into the minor, there's like more options because in minor, sometimes we change things up so that it sounds spicier. I do think this is part of the reason that minor like hits so hard. So in minor, if we're talking about A minor, say we're talking about the relative minor, the 5 chords, so if we count A, B, C, D, E, so E would be 5. The 5 chord is better if it's major because it just like hits different. I'll play it for you guys so you can see. So if it was E minor to A minor, it'd be like, but if it was E major, that just like hits so much better. So usually it's pretty much always major. Okay, so but what makes it major and minor, and like why does that matter, and how does that factor into making things like 7th chords? I'm glad you asked. So when we talk about chords, the thirds are really what makes the chord what it is. So when we were talking about scales, we talked about half steps and whole steps. That's kind of just like the foundation of how you make a scale is you're doing all the different combinations of ordering those half steps and whole steps. This is exactly the same. So making chords is the same way, but with thirds. There's major thirds and there's minor thirds. You only have 2 options. But if you have 3 notes in the chord, you can stack those all differently. There's actually 4 ways to do it. There are 2 main ways, but we'll talk about all 4. So a major third is basically just you start on 1 note, you skip a whole step. Okay, so you can think of the third in terms of like it's just 2 whole steps from the note you start on. 1, 2. So major third's really happy sounding. And then a minor third is basically a step and a half, little spookier. And this is just the foundation of how we make our chords. So depending on what order these happen in, basically the one that's on the bottom determines the quality when we're talking major and minor chords. So with major chord, we have a major third on the bottom. We got those 2 whole steps, C to E. And we actually have a minor third between E and G. So on top, we have a minor third. But when we put it together, it's a major chord or major triad. So major third on the bottom, minor third on top equals a major chord. Minor chord is just the opposite. We put a minor third on the bottom. So we have that smaller interval, that spicier, spookier interval is on the bottom. So it really lands in our ears and stays there. And there's actually a major third on top between the middle note and the top note. But when you put the minor third on the bottom, it gives the chord its quality. So that's minor chord. So these are triads, meaning they have 3 notes in them. And we're going to talk 7th chords, which have 4 notes in them next. But these are the foundations of how we build those. Alrighty. So simplicity is key. I will say, if you're making something like pop music or dance music, oftentimes they're really simple chord progressions, and there are other elements that make it more interesting that aren't the chords, right? If you're playing like jazz standards or jazz music in general, honestly, a lot of R&B music and some house music even gets like really jazzy with the chords. So if you're talking about that type of music, then there might be something a little crazier going on, might not be as simple in terms of the chord progression. And really, again, there are no rules. But I think the simpler you keep the chord progression, the more room there is to spice it up in different ways. And then you can really branch off because you're allowing the melody and things like that to shine because you have a simple foundation that they can go off of. But there's really no wrong answer, and we're going to get a little crazy with it when it comes to chords. So we'll look at all the options. Okay, so if I'm making a pop song or a dance song, these are some really great chord progressions to start out with. If you've been producing and you're struggling with what to do in a major key, for example, and you want some ideas, you could screenshot this. This is a really fun one. So if I'm in C major, a chord progression I like to do is 6, 5, and then hang out on the 4 chord. So really triumphant, just like happy vibe. I feel like that'd be good for a pop song or house song. And then the second progression starts on a G. So it'd be a 1, 5, 6, and then using E minor, 3. It's kind of got this falling aspect to it. And then the last one, I think this is like a really, really common one, a lot of pop music, a 6-4-1-5. So A minor, F, C, G with some rhythm. Yeah, sorry, I got a little messy on that one. So this is some major progressions, really, really simple, easy ones to start out with. And you can use these triads, turn them into seventh chords, and boom, you've got a really jazzy progression. And I'm gonna show you all how to do that. Okay, before we get into that, I wanted to just try this exercise to make sure I haven't lost anyone, because we're getting into the weeds with this stuff. So let's take one of the progressions we just did in C major, and let's transfer it to G major. So if we call C 1, and the funny thing is there's actually no C chords, there's no 1 chords in this progression, but that's something that can make your chord progression more interesting, because if it doesn't land on the 1, it kind of feels like you're floating like endlessly without a destination, and that can be like kind of what you're going for sometimes in music. So if you want to give that floating vibe, you can avoid going to the 1 chord. But if C is 1, then 6 is A. So we're looking for the 6th note in the scale. Okay, so if G is 1, what would the 6th note in the scale be? Give it to me in the chat. So G is going to be 1. And we're going to count up. 3. Yeah, it'd be E. Exactly. So C was 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We count 1 as one of the numbers, which I think can be confusing. But yeah, so it would be, I'll go back. E. Awesome. If it is lowercase, then that implies minor, and if it's uppercase, that implies major. And again, that just has to do with the order of the minor and major thirds, which one comes on top or bottom, but we're just going off of the scale notes. All right, so if G is 1, we're going to count up. What would 5 be? So we count C twice. Yeah, you count C as 1. I know, it's so confusing. Let's look at this. Oh, yeah. D. You got it. Yeah, that would be D. Why 6? Okay, so yeah, I wrote these as Roman numerals, which is just so that I can show the quality, because 6 is minor, so I'm making it lowercase. But I could also write it like this. I could do a 6, and then I could do a lowercase m. We're counting G as 1. Hey, Chloe, what's up? Glad you're here. Yeah, these Roman numerals can definitely be confusing. But yeah, that's kind of what I mean by those. All right, okay, so then now we just have one more to find. If D is 5 and E minor is 6, what would 4 be, y'all? Exactly, you got it. Hell yeah, so if we want to hear that one, so it's the same type of progression, but it's in a different key. And why does this matter? Well, if you're working with a singer who likes to sing in a certain key, or if you, someone said earlier, if you found a splice sample, for example, you really love it, it's in a certain key, you can transpose splice samples, of course, to match your project, but maybe you just want it to be like in the key that your project's already in, right? So you can always transpose the sample, or you can change your song to match the sample depending on your workflow, or if you have a singer that wants to use a different key. But then you can transfer the same vibe with chords to a different starting point or to a different scale. And yeah, so that's how you transpose chord progressions. Y'all are masters at that. That was awesome. Okay, so now we're talking minor, get a little bit more exciting here before we jump into 7th chords. So this is a really super fun minor chord progression. It's really popular. I'll play it for y'all so you can hear it. Does this sound familiar? Does anyone think they've heard this before? Yeah, Adele, totally. I feel like she definitely has a song with these chords. Cry Me a River. Oh shoot, you're right. That's so true. James Bond. Yeah. I feel like it is. The one that comes to mind for me is the song by Nina Simone. It goes, birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. You guys know that one? So that one's a fun one. And then also, what is the other song? Oh, Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. That one also uses these chords too. I'm blanking on that song in the moment, but same chords. So that's a really fun progression. And actually, if there are any dubstep fans in the chat, there are a lot of songs, dubstep songs, that use this progression. Not in C, they use it in different keys, but I made a little video to show you. So if there are any dubstep fans, you guys might enjoy this. Hopefully sound works okay. Give me a shout in the chat if it doesn't. Yeah, it's really quiet, I think. But did you guys hear it a little bit? You might have to turn your volume up. I think there's a way for me to do it, but you could hear it a bit. Okay, cool. Some of these videos might be a little quiet. But yeah, that's a really fun one. You could hear it. Cool. Yeah, we got some Grizz, some Alley Cat. Love Alley Cat. Awesome female producer. So yeah, that's a really fun progression. If you're making some dark music like dubstep or bass music, like that's a really great one to start with, and you don't have to do it in C. You can do it in any key you want. So that's a really cool one. All right, so just kind of reviewing the stuff we talked about with these chords. So we talked about major chords and minor chords, and we talked about how a major chord has a major third on the bottom and it has a minor third on top. And then a minor chord is the reverse, minor third on the bottom, major third on top. But there are actually two combinations we didn't talk about. So those of you who are talking about diminished chords in the chat, a diminished chord is a stack of minor thirds. So there's no major thirds to be found. We took the intervals and we squished them. So we've got a minor third followed by a minor third. It sounds like this. And then all together. It's like super spooky horror movie vibes. But diminished can be really pretty in like a jazz context, or if you are going for like a very spooky kind of vibe, then a diminished chord is the one you want to go for. And then an augmented chord is the opposite of that. So it's all major thirds. There's no minor thirds. And if you do that, it sounds also kind of spooky, but in a different way. So C to E, and then E to G sharp. So two major thirds on top of each other. Also very spooky. So using only minor thirds to make your chords, or using only major thirds, so diminished chords and augmented chords, can be another spicy way to change it up. Worth playing with. But we don't see them as much, I will say, as we see the major and minor chords, just like the scales. Okay, so we're talking seventh chords now, and there are a lot of different ways to go about building these. It's a lot of information, so I'm going to kind of break it down and then show you guys an exercise I like to do on the piano that doesn't really require that much like piano knowledge to do, and hopefully it helps you visualize seventh chords a little better. Augmented is only major thirds. Yes, that's right. So diminished is all minor thirds, and augmented is all major thirds. So diminished, we're like diminishing the interval, we're squashing it. And then augmented is we're like making it bigger. We're spreading it out with a major third, because a major third's a half step bigger than a minor third. Okay, so getting into our seventh chords. How I like to think about this, I'm actually going to show you guys maybe this video first, because it might be a little easier to visualize this way. And I'm going to play it. I know it's a little quiet, so you guys can turn it up, but then I'll play it on my keyboard too, so you can hear it a little better. But just so you can visualize, I made this video about how to do all the different seventh chords if we started on C, for example. All right, so I know that was probably tricky to hear, but basically what I'm doing each time is I am lowering things by a half step. I'm gonna go back here. No. There we go. So if we start with C major, we have C, E, G on the bottom, right? And using our every other trick, B, if we add that on top, would just be following the same pattern, right? So C is 1, skip 1, E is our next note. Skip 1, G is our next note. That was our C major triad. Now, if we want to make it a C major 7, we need to add a 4th note following that same every other pattern. A C major 7 or any major 7 chord is really just using the note that's already in that scale. So if we're talking C major scale, B is the 7th note. It's naturally occurring in that scale. So that pattern sounds like this. And all together. C major 7 is great for jazz. It's great for R&B. And it really is kind of just like a floating vibe. It's not super crunchy or dissonant. I feel like you can hang out on this chord and like feel pretty good. Should we assume not to play the 7th in a chord unless it has the 7th noted? Yeah, so that's why I kind of have them written here like this, and this is like lead sheet symbols. Oh, Studio Ghibli. Yes, totally. Lots of 7th chords there. So yeah, when you see the letter, that's going to tell you what is the root note and the scale that we're thinking about when we're making the chord. So that's C. And then the maj symbol means major. And then the 7 means we're adding the major 7th. So we just take the major scale and we add that naturally occurring 7th to the top of it using that every other trick. So you could also do this with a different key too. Like if we wanted to do it on D, for example, then it would be like D, F sharp, A, and then C sharp would be the 7th in that key. Okay, so that's the C major 7. Now we take this entire pattern, and to make this into a dominant 7, which I like to go to next because it only changes one note, C, E, G, B, changing it from major 7 to dominant 7. Dominant in music theory terms is just like another fancy word for 5, like the 5 chord, and it creates a lot of dissonance before going to the 1 chord. So like this kind of progression. It's like that really like, okay, now we're home kind of vibe. So to make a chord that's less like hanging out in a cloud, like we could just hang out there, to make it more driving, like it's going somewhere, we flatten the top note. So we flatten the 7th, and this one's written without the major symbol. It's just written like capital and then 7. And that's what that means if you look up the chords to a song and you're trying to play those chords, which maybe you're using a reference track to produce, and you're trying to find the chords to a song. It really helps with mixing if you are using the same key or the same chords. So if you see that it doesn't have a major or minor symbol, it just has the letter and then a 7, that indicates that it's like basically a major 7, but you take the top note and you flatten it. And it sounds a lot more like we need to go somewhere with it. Right, so it's really nice to like hit that next chord, that F afterwards, because C is the 5 of F. So this is used a lot on the 5 chord in a key. Earlier we did that chord progression with G, and we found out that D was the 5. So it'd be like if we went from D to G, it sounds good, but it sounds better if we play it as a dominant 7. just a little bit more driving. So that's the dominant 7 chord. All we did was we took the top note of the major 7 and we just brought it down a half step. All right, so going on, next we'll go to our minor 7. So we keep that B flat, and now we're taking the second note and we're bringing that down a half step. So the minor 7 is my personal favorite chord out of all the 7th chords. I think this is also very Studio Ghibli. So very jazzy. The minor 7 is a really fun one. And this one is also really good when you're wanting to kind of hang out and like feel like your music is floating. It doesn't need a place to resolve to. It's just kind of hanging on the minor 7. Okay, so those are like the 3, I think, most common 7th chords. And then going on to, again, of course, our outliers, the ones that are used less frequently but still sound awesome. And if you're trying to make more complex chord progressions, you might want to incorporate these. So taking our minor 7 chord, we flattened or brought down in pitch by a half step the second note, and then also we had done that with the 7th note too. So now we've squashed our chord a little bit. And to make our half diminished chord, we actually take the 3rd note in the chord, which we haven't messed with that one yet, and we bring that one down a half step. So I'm playing C, E flat, G flat, B flat. So that one sounds like. So that one's pretty jazzy, still a little bit spooky. Will there be playback? Yeah, we're recording this, so there will be, I hope. I hope we'll be able to send it out afterwards. And then the last one would be, we're just gonna bring that B flat down one more time, and it's so silly because it really is just the note A. But in music theory terms, they like to call it a B double flat because we flatted it once and we're flatting it again. So diminished is very spooky, right? And when we talk diminished 7th, it's just like the diminished triad. It's just a stack of minor thirds, and that's how you make the diminished 7th. So those are all the types of 7th chords. I know that was a lot. Does anybody have any questions about the types of 7th chords? Feel free to type them in the chat now. We're going to go through some examples using a couple different dance songs next. Yeah, I can absolutely get this out to you guys, for sure. Totally. I'll send out the slide deck. Yeah. Alrighty. So an even jazzier way to make your 7th chords really pop is to add a 9th. Now y'all, a 9th is really just a second. So if we called C 1, then D would be 2, right? So a 9th is talking about a second, but the octave up. Because if C is 1, the next C up would like be 8. So you could think of like the one right above it would be 9. So when you see a 9 in a chord chart, or you're looking up the chords to a song, the 9 really just means whatever the root note in the chord is, what's a step above that, like a whole step above that, or the second note in the scale. And you put that an octave up, it sounds really nice. If I put it an octave down, it's a little crunchy. So there's our C major. And then if I put the 9th in the same octave, it's crunchy, but it's like not bad. It's kind of nice. It's kind of heroic. But say I put it instead up top. And say we add it with a 7th in there. So the C9, it's like the C7. It's indicating the flat 7th, the dominant 7. So we got our dominant 7, and we're going to put a 9 on top. I think the minor 9 is my favorite, so we'll put a minor 7 on the bottom. That one's really pretty. And then the major 9, same thing. Oh my gosh, minor 9 is so musical theater. You're absolutely right. Yeah. If anyone's a Wicked fan, they use like some crazy chords in that musical. I love that musical so much. Okay. Going on to the major 9, that would just be, again, using that same major 7 that we talked about, but then adding the D on top. That's really all I'm doing to make these from 7th to 9th chords, is we're just adding a D because that's the 2nd, or an octave up would be the 9th. So I really like 9th chords because they add that jazzy, spicy element. Okay, so putting this all into perspective, if anybody knows this artist, her name's Fake Blonde. She's really super cool. She's got some great music out there. She sings on some It's Murph songs, some Arlo songs, some Daniel Allen songs, some Distant Matter songs. So if you know any of those artists, mainly in the house space, then you might know Fake Blonde. She's got a great voice, but she also is a producer as well. And I love this song by her called Glitter that she released, I think, last year. And so if we take a look at the chords in this song and like what's going on, it's pretty simple at its core, and it's just gotten a little bit spicier by adding 7ths. So one of the chords she uses is D major. And I'm pretty sure this song is in F sharp minor, for reference, just if we were using it for the Camelot wheel or you wanted to DJ, I think it's an F sharp minor. And a really good way too to find Fake Blonde. Oh yeah. Yeah, Daniel Allen's great. And a really simple way to find the key is to, if you use Rekordbox, you can load it up there, but you can also use a website called TuneBat, and they can give you the BPM and key. Okay, so D major, pretty simple chord, no 7ths in that one, but she uses 7ths in all the other ones. So C sharp minor, but with the 7th on top, really, really pretty. Super nice. Then she hits us with the F sharp 7. Now this is kind of wacky because if we're in the key of F sharp minor, we wouldn't expect F sharp to be major, right? It kind of takes us out of it. It's sort of like we're modulating to a different key for a second. And in this case, it'd be the parallel key. The relative key uses all the same notes, but starts on a different note to build the scale. A parallel key means that they have the same root, but they're a different type of scale. So F sharp minor has a parallel key of F sharp major. They're parallel because they are starting on the same note, but they don't have the same notes in their scale. So it's kind of funky. It gives this feeling of like we're drifting off to another key for a second, but then we're back. And the reason it works is because they share the same root note, so it's not too crazy going to a different chord. So if you're ever stuck on a chord progression, or your ears when you're composing or producing are like, I want it to do something spicy, but what? Try taking that chord that you have and try making it major instead of minor and see if it sounds better. It will mean that you're using a note that's not in the scale. Like your piano roll won't have that note highlighted, but it might sound good anyway. So like take the chords, start in the key that your piano roll is using, and then from there experiment with making the chord major or minor to see if it sounds cooler. Sometimes the only way is to give it a shot, but it really does work. Parallel key equals same root, different notes in the scale. Exactly. So like F sharp major versus F sharp minor. They're parallel keys. Alrighty. So the chord progression for this song. It's a really fun one. So I'm going to play this one. Hopefully it'll be a little bit louder, but you might have to turn your volume up a little bit. You make me feel different, like I was sort of drifting. There's not enough time with you melts by. You make me feel different. Nobody could find me. There's me and you here under satellites. Alrighty, so just because it's a long song, and you guys should totally go stream it and save it, I'm just going to stop it there. But if you want to find her, Fake Blonde, you should look her up. She's awesome. Super cool. So she's using those same chords the whole song. And the reason it's working, it's only 4 chords, but the reason it works is because she's changing up the arrangement throughout, right? She's adding and taking away elements. And that's what makes your production shine. It's not crazy chord progressions. In fact, you can't even copyright a chord progression. Like, there's only really so many that like most pieces of music use. And of course, there are outliers. There's a lot of jazz music. Musical theater is another great example. And of course, there are also experimental electronic artists who are using different chords that we don't expect to see together as much, or that our ears are like, oh, that's new. Like, that sounds really different. But ultimately, like, a lot of the same chord progressions are used over and over in songs, and it's a great way to create mashups when you're DJing, but it's also just a great way to get started producing. You don't have to do anything crazy with your chords, and you can still make something really cool. So, in the spirit of showing you guys my process a little bit, I'm gonna show you an unreleased song that I have called Next to You. It's a house song that I made in Ableton, and I started with a pretty simple chord progression, and let's see if this video is a little bit louder for you. But I started with B flat minor, D flat major, G flat major, A flat major. So pretty simple to start. But then I added some sevenths and I added some ninths. So that same kind of process of like adding a fourth note on top of the chords that only had 3. And I have a little video showing you in Ableton in the MIDI, excuse me, how I changed those. So let's take a look at that. With the sevenths. So I know that was probably a little tricky to hear, but I added sevenths and ninths to make the chords a little more interesting. B flat minor, but then B flat minor with a minor seventh and also a ninth. Like, that's crazy different. That sounds a lot different. And then D flat major, that jazzy feel, right? And then G flat major as well. And then we're gonna do a regular old A flat, and the reason is because I'm in the key of B flat minor, or really D flat major. And so A flat is going to be the 5, and we really don't wanna do anything to the 5. We wanna leave it alone because it's going to go back to the 1 in our brains. And it's just a little bit more heroic and final. So for my progression, a lot of the chords are very floaty and jazzy, but then I have one that's not, because it kind of keeps the drive going. And so you can kind of pick and choose what vibe you want to give with your chord progressions. And so, like Glitter, we didn't play the whole song, but I'll play my song for you guys just so you can really hear like the different sections and why it works with the progression. But when you're talking about producing and you're talking about DJing, it's the same thing. You kind of have to think about the phrasing and where you're going to go. And most of the time, phrases are done in like 4-bar, 8-bar, 16-bar. I think 8-bar is probably the most common. But when you're talking about something like a verse or even like a drop, it's probably going to be more like 16. But it really depends on the song. And a good way to learn different song structures, or like the number of bars in a section, is to just take a song, break it down. Where's the verse? Where's the intro? How many bars of each? And then you can kind of base your song off of that, or use a reference track. And we do this a lot in production, right? We pick a song, we want to go for a similar vibe, and we use that to inspire us, and then we turn it into something totally different. So this song is called Next to You. And this one actually might be a little loud because it is mastered. So if you had your volume up, then you might want to turn it down just a smidge. But yeah, so I took those chords, I added a melody, which is my vocals. I also added a counter melody in this like lead synth part that you'll hear. And then I brought in elements and I took elements away. And that's kind of an oversimplification of like how to produce using that chord progression in mind. I built everything on top of that. So here is Next to You. Thank you guys so much for listening to that song all the way through. I haven't shown it to that many people, so it's really cool playing it for y'all. Thank you for all the positive vibes in the comments. So, so appreciative. This was the first song that I ever tried my hand at mixing. I've been producing for a couple years, but mixing is so tricky. So, thank you again for listening. Oh, thank you so much if you're stepping out. It was great meeting you. So this one is like the format of the song is a little bit different, but overall, it's got intro, outro, it's got like verse, pre-chorus, chorus. You think of the chorus like a drop too, if you wanted. And then there's like an outro. I have like a breakdown section. So this one's kind of complicated in like the arrangement way, but again, the chords are the same the whole way through, and that was the first thing that I drew into my DAW was the chord progression. And I really feel very strongly that the chord progression you choose for your song makes or breaks the song because it decides what type of energy it's going to have. And you build everything else around that. You can do any type of beat, any type of genre, but like the chord progression dictates the energy of the song. So for me, it was mostly a pretty jazzy, floaty chord progression, but it had that driving like 5 chord at the end that makes you feel like, okay, we're going somewhere. So moving on. So this is kind of the last section of our presentation, and once I get to the end of these examples, I'm just like open floor for any questions y'all have. We could get into somebody's project if they have a project they want to open, or you want to like build a chord progression together, or like dissect one from a song, whatever you're feeling. But I want to share this last kind of like few examples with y'all, and then we can open the floor. So modulation is when you change the key center of a song. So my song Next to You, it was in the same key the whole song. It didn't have any modulations, and it really didn't have any chords that were spicy or different at all in the song. Like it was just the same 4 bar, or not 4 bar, was it 8 bar? No, 4 bar, yeah. It was the same 4 chords over and over again. And not every song is like that. A lot of times in pop music too, they change the progression depending if it's the verse or pre-chorus. If you're someone who looks up chords to songs and like plays them a lot on guitar or whatever, on piano, then you probably noticed that. But a lot of dance music, I feel like, uses the same progression the whole time. And it could be because it's easier for DJing, and I also think it's easier for producing. So if you're just kind of getting started, keeping it simple is the way to go. But if you've been keeping it simple and you're looking to get a little spicier, modulation could be the thing that takes your chords to the next level. And we're going to look at a few examples. So you can permanently move to a new key in the middle of your song, like do a key change. It happens all the time in musical theater, but it also happens in pop. I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. They've got the key change. Love on Top by Beyonce. She's got like, I forget how many, maybe like 6 key changes at the end of that song. It's crazy. Trying to think of some other examples right off the top of my head, but a simple key change is really common modulation technique to just bring up the energy. And It's Murph does that in one of the songs we're going to look at here. So, one type of modulation, like I said, is just changing the key in the middle of the song and then keeping it in that new key. So it elevates the way the song sounds. So I made a little video explaining this, and again, might have to turn up your volume a little bit. But originally in the song, the chords, there's really 3 main chords in the whole song. But at the end, we modulate and the chords go up a whole step. And so it brings everything up. And so I'll show you guys what that sounds like, what that looks like. Maybe. Why does the song sound so euphoric? It's because It's Murph, Arlo, and Emmy Grace are using a modulation technique. Most of the song up to this point uses the chords A flat major 7, B flat major 7, and C major 7. But when we get to this breakdown section, all of the instruments drop and the vocal is the leader in this modulation. Everything slowly follows suit until we get a whole step higher than we were. Modulating a whole step up really brings the euphoria to the dance floor, and it's part of the reason I love It's Murph, Arlo, and Emmy so much. Like and follow for more. All right. So, why does the song sound so so that one is a really easy way to tell. There's a couple different ways to change keys in a song. What it sounds like they did in that song is it sounds like they automated the key changing because we got to hear every instrument kind of like slide up to the new key. And that feels very intentional as like a part of the build-up process, right? And then there's another drop in the new key. But you could also just shift all the chords all of a sudden. And there's different ways to do it. You can use pivot chords, chords that are in one key and also in another key. That can get really trippy, but if you're able to make that work, there's lots of different ways to do modulation. But I think pitch bending or, automating pitch change in your DAW in Ableton or Logic or FL, I think they all have ways to do that. So that sounds like what's going on here, but it really keeps it energized, and it's a fun way to switch up the vibe. Okay, so another example, not dance music, but pop music, is a Sabrina Carpenter song called Tears, which came out on her, I think, most recent album last year. And this one is super crazy because modal interchange is not changing the key forever. It's not like you're moving to a new key and you're staying there like in the It's Murph song, but instead you're borrowing chords from the parallel minor or major and incorporating it into the chord progression. So it's kind of what I was talking about with Glitter that Fake Blonde did, where she like took a chord that we would expect to be minor because she uses it minor, but then she uses it major in the song. And so it's like our ears perk up and we're like, whoa, that's different. I didn't expect that. So it's modal interchange is what that's called. And I explain it a little bit more in this video so we can take a look. But the lyrics are this part of the song, the tears run down my thighs, a little initiative into that verse. And it only happens there in that verse spot, but it's really cool. Why does this chord progression sound so unusual? It's because Sabrina Carpenter is changing where we feel the tonal center between the verse and the chorus. The song starts out with the chorus, which feels like it's in D minor. The chords in the chorus all use notes that we find in the D minor scale. But when we get to the verse, she hits us with an F minor 7. F minor 7 has an A flat in it, which we definitely would not find in the D minor scale. Even more than that, D minor is the relative minor of F major. So pulling an F minor 7 chord... Oh, that's weird. I don't know why it stopped there. Strange. But yeah, so it feels extra weird. Yeah, can you guys hear my cat meowing? He's been meowing for the last while. It's his dinner time soon. But yeah, so basically incorporating a chord from another key that you don't expect is modal interchange, and it feels like a momentary key change basically, but it's not, because we go back to the other key. And there's actually a couple Sabrina Carpenter songs that do this, and it's a little bit tricky to get the hang of, but we went through all of those foundational things that y'all would need to kind of uncover how to do that. So like working through what are the notes in the scale that you're in, and then, okay, what are all the chords in the scale that you're in? And then can I take one of these and let me make it minor instead, or let me make it major instead? And what does that sound like? So that's basically what happened here. All right. We've got one more video, and then I want to open the floor to questions for y'all, or for me. And this last one is one of my personal favorites. It's called Secondary Dominance, and it's kind of an extension of the modal interchange thing. So when I described modal interchange, I was saying, well, you're going to take a chord that you would expect to be major in that key, and you're going to turn it minor instead, or vice versa. But secondary dominants are a little bit more specific. Because we're talking dominant, which is the 5 chord in a key. So again, there's this really important relationship, and I'll go all the way back to this chart I showed you all at the beginning. Maybe it'll make a little more sense now. The 5 chord is really important because that is like the defining chord that goes to the 1 chord. So like in C major, it feels really final when we have G to C, right? So secondary dominants are when we take the 5 chord from a different key and we sneak that in there. And it has to be done in a certain way to really hit right, which means a momentary key change, because we take the 5 from a different key and then we use that 5 to get to the next chord. So I'll show you all an example in a Sam Smith song that maybe everybody knows. It's a little older. Okay, so in the song I'm Not the Only One by Sam Smith, the chords are F, A, D minor, and B flat. And this song is in the key of F major. F major only has one flat, and that's B flat. It doesn't have any sharps, but the A major chord does have a sharp in it, so it doesn't belong in the scale normally, and you can really hear that when you listen to the progression. So let's take a look. Why is it that this chord progression sounds so good? It's because Sam Smith is using a music theory technique called secondary dominants. Secondary dominants are where you choose a note in the scale of the key you're in, and you borrow the dominant chord from that key. For example, in this song, we're in the key of F major, where F only has one accidental, B flat. But the chords to this song have a C sharp in them, which we don't usually find in F major. And that's because C sharp is found in the chord A major. A major is the dominant chord, or the 5, of D. So, take any chord in your song, call that 1, figure out what would the 5 be, or the dominant, and put that chord before it. Try this in your next song, it'll sound amazing. Okay. So yeah, that one's a little bit tough to grasp, I feel like, because you kind of have to understand 2 keys at the same time and like think about the 2 different keys. But hopefully it makes sense, which is that we're in the key of F major, and we're placing the 5 of D right before the D minor chord. So if we were in D minor, for example, the D minor scale, and this is kind of what happens in chord progressions, is when you're on a chord, you kind of are in that scale for a minute, just a minute. But the relationship between all the chords is based on the key that you're in. And so you can kind of play with it. But if we were in D minor, then A major would be the 5 of D minor. Now that has nothing to do with F, but D minor is a chord that we get in the key of F. So we're momentarily kind of highlighting the scale of D minor for a minute by bringing in an A chord, because we wouldn't find that in F. And it brings sort of a spicy vibe to it. So we took the 5 of D and we threw that in. So secondary dominants are crazy. I feel like we're getting kind of into graduate level music theory here. So I'm going to kind of stop here and see how you guys are feeling. Hopefully some of that made sense. Hopefully you learned something new and had fun. Does anybody have any questions for me? Anything they want to ask? Or, you can throw in the chat something you're going to try in your next song. There's really like no bad questions too. I'd love to answer any questions y'all have about producing, about DJing, about arranging, chord progressions, music theory. Yeah, and I can see if I can change the permissions here, because I'm not sure if y'all are able to hop on the mic with this, how I have it. Any tips on ear training? Yeah, absolutely. So a website that I love is musictheory.net, and this website rocks. They have lessons on music theory. It's pretty like standard notation sheet music stuff, but what I really like is their exercises for ear training and stuff. So they have interval ear training, so that's like major thirds and minor thirds. They have scale ear training, like minor and major. Oh, yeah. They have chord ear training and lessons. Yeah, I'll definitely send out the slide deck too, in addition to the recording if I can. But this website is great for ear training. And they have also like a ton of different music theory tools. And if you just want to know more about music theory, it's a really fun way to do that. How did I get the stuttered effect in Next to You? Okay, that's like a production question, but I can definitely show you guys that. Let me stop sharing this. Okay, sweet. So let me pull up the project, show you guys. There's a couple different ways to get the stutter effects. I feel like I've only just scratched the surface with the different ways you can do that. And I forget which way I did this in this project, so let's find out. Open up in Ableton. But feel free, if you have any other questions while I'm getting this loaded up, feel free to type them in the chat. All right, gonna next to you. How to learn how to mix and master. So I took a class on Udemy. It was pretty cheap. It was like 17 bucks or something. And it was like, I was new to Ableton because I was using Logic a lot before. And I just did like a producer's, an Ableton certified trainer producer's class. And I can actually pull that up and just honestly, like, I would highly recommend it. It was so great. And especially if you're using Ableton, it's just like an awesome class. And I really like made a song alongside this teacher. His name's Simon. He's a certified Ableton trainer. And he just like breaks everything down really, really well. Producing and also mixing is a whole section on mixing and mastering. So it was a really helpful class. Highly recommend it. And super affordable, which is great. I'm still learning how to master. I haven't touched that yet, but I've been sort of just watching a lot of YouTube videos and asking friends that mix and master their music, like how they do it, because it's really expensive to pay every time to get someone else to mix and master your stuff. So hoping to get that myself. Okay, so let me share my window. Desktop 1. Okay, hopefully that's working. Sweet. You guys can see that. Alrighty. Cool. So let's dig in and take a look at the stutter vocals. What is going on here? Okay. So a couple different ways. Auto pan tremolo is a really good way. Let's see. Listen to that one. It sounds like it's already on there. Studio 40 offers free music production classes. Oh, that's great. Good to know if you're in New York. That's awesome. I think I already had that effect on it. Let's see. Lead box. Oh, here we go. So for the lead vocal, I automated. It was great to meet you, Monique. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Have an awesome night. I automated the auto pan tremolo here on the lead vocal. And so in certain parts I turned it on, so the vocal was only stuttering in certain sections. Sorry, I just played that entire thing. Have a great dinner. Let's see. I love it when I'm next to you. Yeah, so when it's on, it's stuttering. And then when it's off, it's not stuttering. But this plugin is great. So if you use Ableton, using Auto Pan Tremolo is really awesome. I was actually using Logic before, and that's how I first started learning how to produce. But I really couldn't figure out how to do stutter vocals in Logic, and that's what made me want to learn Ableton. It's very crazy, like that one thing. I was just like, I'm gonna learn how to do it here. And there's totally a way to do it in Logic. I learned later that there was a way, but I'm really enjoying Ableton because I just feel like there's a lot more options for making the sounds you want to make. Like there's different avenues to get there. So using the Auto Pan Tremolo plugin, or not plugin, but just like audio effect. It's just a stock Ableton effect. But yeah, it's a really great one. Any other questions? In Logic, would it be Tremolo Auto Pan too? Probably. I feel like I don't think they call it Auto Pan. Maybe they call it Tremolo instead. And I have used the tremolo stock in Logic to do like some backing vocal stuff, but I've never tried it on a lead vocal. I bet it probably works the same. Happy music making. Great to meet you guys. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions about producing, about DJing, music theory? Oh, I'm so glad. Follow me on Instagram if you guys haven't. I'd love to connect with y'all. This is my handle. Oh, thank y'all. Yeah, I love teaching. I've been doing it, this will be my 10th year of teaching. I do private lessons and like coaching sessions too. So if you're interested, if you want to dive deeper, or if you have a song you're working on and like you want to produce and learn how to like add some of these elements to your production, would love to work on it with you too. Slash just connect. I want to listen to y'all's music and support you on social media. So drop your handle in here before you go, just so I can follow you too. Yeah, I teach super beginner music theory for sure. I start at the very beginning, and especially in a one-on-one setting, you know, we can really like get into what it is you want to learn. This session was definitely a challenge to design because I wasn't sure what everyone wanted to know and where everyone's skills were, but hopefully you could take something from it. But yeah, can start at the very beginning of music theory, absolutely. Awesome. Go feed your cat. Yeah, it is almost his dinner time. But he starts meowing like way before it's time. Yay, I'm so excited to go follow y'all back. Happy to be here. We might do a follow-up session if there's anything else y'all want to learn. So, you know, feel free to plug it in the chat, and I'd love to get another session on the books. Happy music making. If you guys have any other questions, I'm here to chat. Would love to learn more about your goals and what you're doing and everything. But thank you all so much for tuning in. And yeah, that's kind of all I have. So now's your last chance to ask any crazy music theory questions before we hop off. Yay. Looking forward to following y'all too. Sweet. Yay. Looking forward to connecting. Yeah, before we log off, maybe we could chat about something that you learned today or that you want to implement in your music process. Is there anything that you're currently working on? So I can just get like a kind of gauge where everybody's at. You know, where you're at in your process. Are you producing your own songs? Are you just starting to learn how to produce? Are you looking to implement more modulation in your chord progressions, or maybe just get more intentional about your chords in general? But yeah, would love to know what you guys found helpful from this class, or if there's something you still want to know. In addition to your IG handle, everybody throw something in the chat just so we can kind of do that as like a wrap up. And I can also plan another session to address some of those like more specific things that y'all are working on, or things you've been struggling with that you want like help with, because I would love to assist. Yeah, process for sound design. Oh yeah, using microtones. Super crazy. I know you can do that in your DAW. You can't do that on piano, I don't think. There might be a few that allow you to. Learning to code music. Oh wow. Very cool. Yeah, sound design. So I use Serum for a lot of sound design, but not for everything. The main reason I like to use Serum is because I feel like it's a really good way to get started if you haven't done a lot of sound design, because they have Serum presets in Splice. So if you're not familiar with Splice, definitely check it out. The thing I love Splice for is the Serum patches. It's when like other producers create a sound and then they basically upload all those settings so you can use the same sound in your music, but like put it on the notes of your song. And I think that is just like super awesome. So I know Splice also has a lot of samples and stuff like that. But the thing is, when you take a sample, if you just leave it as is, there's like so many other producers who could use that same sample and use it in their song the same way. So that's the risk with using a melodic sample, like not like a drum sample or whatever, but when you take a Serum preset, you're just taking a sound and then you're manipulating it on the notes that you want to. So this might be review. I don't know like where you're at in your journey, but oh, we should all, yeah, I think Femhouse is also starting a Discord where you can get feedback on your tracks to the person in the chat who said that. So stay tuned. I'm excited to join that Discord because I would love to hear your track and give you feedback. But yeah, this might be super beginner. If you already have Splice, then you already know this. But if you haven't used Splice before, to show you guys. I used it for a while before I knew that it had presets, and I wish I knew sooner because it's such a game changer. So let me see if I can share this. You've spliced, but you've only used samples. Okay, cool, perfect. Let me put you on then. Hopefully it'll work. If I share desktop 2. Okay, that should work. Cool. Okay. So you guys should be able to see both of these. Just make sure. Yeah. Okay. So I've got Ableton open, and I've also got Splice open. So when you go to Splice and you click Browse, or you're searching for something, right? You've got instruments, genres, whatever, and then you've got presets, and that's what we're looking for. So if I search for bass, there's samples, and then there's presets. And if you click presets, it has all of these sounds and it has a preview of the sound. And it's not a sample. So like you wouldn't be getting that exact bass line, but instead you're getting that bass instrument. And so it's a Serum 2 preset. It tells you what plugin, and there's just so much Serum, which is the reason that I feel like I downloaded it in the first place, because there's other ways to make synths and wavetables. Like Serum isn't the only one, but there's also Vital, which is free. You don't have to pay for that one, which is nice. But there's just so many people making them, and so that's why I feel like it's really helpful. So if you want to get this bass instrument, say you want to like write a bass line in your project that uses that, then what you would do is you can make like a new bass track, just make a new MIDI track, and we're gonna take our Serum, and that was a Serum 2 preset, so we want to use Serum 2. And what you would do is you would drag the preset onto it, and so you click these dots here, and you go to Show and Closing Folder. And then it brings up the sample, and it's kind of crazy. You literally just drag it right on. It acts a little weird sometimes here. Oh yeah, it's a little crazy. I have to close that. Yeah, so I don't know. With all my windows, it's really struggling to open both at the same time. So I'm gonna move it to my desktop. But yeah, so you open Serum. And you take that file and you just drag it onto the wavetable, boom. And now you have this bass. And you can even change it up, like you can manipulate the wavetable to be how you want it. Then the ones already built into Serum. Yeah, they are. So like Serum has built-in presets, but other people make synths and then they upload it to Splice and then you can use it. It's so cool. And there's so many. Like, it's really wild how many there are. And if you find one that you really like, you know, you can save it, and you can save it to your, it's kind of a crazy process for finding where to save it. But if you have a Mac, it's a little wild. You don't want to save it to your desktop. You want to save it to Library, Audio, Presets, Serum 2 presets, presets again, User. And then if you save it there, Then if you go to this drop down and you go to user, then the ones that you liked that you dragged from Splice are saved here. So you never have to go back to Splice and find them again, which is really nice. And I wish I knew this sooner. But that's how I start out a lot of the time is like I just go with a preset so I can get creating as soon as possible. And like I'm still learning, with sound design and creating sounds from scratch. I've created a couple sounds from scratch, but it takes a lot of like technical knowledge to get there. And sometimes that can like inhibit you from creating. So the sooner you can get there, the better. Splice menu button, open Serum 2 presets folder. Yeah. So, Splice is awesome. Big fan. In terms of other sound design stuff, let's see. Something else that I don't know if you guys have worked with at all is automation. So, like, you can automate so many different parameters of your song. Let's see, what's one that I've done a lot. Let's actually open a different project in here. Let's open, close that. Yeah, let's open this one. So this is a remix I did, and I manipulated one of the parameters in a preset from Splice that I got for Serum, and I manipulated the rate at which the LFO was moving to make this synth part. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this one. So, yeah. Okay, so we go into, yeah, it's right here. So it's kind of hard to see, but what I manipulated was within the instrument itself, and I manipulated the LFO rate. So here's my automation, but if we open it up, you can kind of see what exactly I'm doing. I gotta drag it up. There we go. So this rate right here is what I manipulated, and I'll solo it so you guys can hear it. Make sure I don't play all the other things. Yeah, so hopefully you guys could hear that. But I was just manipulating the LFO rate, and you can do this by hand. You can like map it to a MIDI controller, or you can draw it in. But I feel like that's what gives like that kind of like wub vibe to your synths. So I just took like a Splice preset for Serum, and then I manipulated the rate of the LFO on my own. Somewhere to get vocal samples. Yeah, Splice has vocal samples, for sure. Also, depending on what kind of vocal samples you're looking for, I also make vocal packs and do custom vocal writing too. But yeah, Splice is great for that, especially if you're just looking for like some one-shot kind of things. But Splice is so helpful if you just need something quickly. The problem with Splice with vocals is like everything. It's really hard to tell like what's AI and what's not. And a lot of times like there's just no way to know. So the issue with using like a big amount of vocals from Splice is that you can't ensure that it's not gonna like be on someone else's song. Super crazy. I heard like a huge Levity song, By My Side is it was in the dubstep video I shared. But I heard that exact same vocal in like a house song, like when I was out, and I was like, wait, this is that Levity song, but it's not, because that vocal sample's on Splice for everybody to use, and any producer can use it, and everybody's allowed to have it. So it's kind of crazy because then you start associating it with like a song that already exists. So yeah, this happened to me too with the song. I think it's called Paranoid by No Good. they use a sample that I used in one of my songs too, and I didn't even know it. And we used it in the same key too, which was very crazy. So I made like a little mashup and remix, which was fun. Um, but yeah, so going into vocals, you don't want to be in samples. I guess you could be in presets. They might have some vocal stuff, but I feel like more so it's here. And you can decide on your key. If you're not sure, you can do major or minor, which again, very helpful. You can decide on your BPM, and you can do a one shot or a loop. So you can do all these parameters. I've never actually used the genre parameter, but that could probably be helpful too. Um, and yeah, anything that you want to purchase with your credits, you can buy and then have, and yeah, you can load that right into your project. And you can make it match the BPM too of your project as well, and the key. So if you find something you like and you want it to be in the key of your song, Ableton's pretty good about that. If you have the settings set up, you can just drag it right in. And then in Logic, you go to flex pitch and flex time in order to change the key or the time. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad. Does anybody else have any questions? This was super, super fun. We had a great turnout for this session too. Thank you to all 17 of you guys who stayed till like the very end. Again, I would love to connect with y'all on socials. Find me there. I can't wait to listen to your music and maybe meet you in real life at like a rave or an event or a show, or another FemHouse session. Hopefully, we'll have another one soon. But keep making music and keep connecting with female and femme artists in this community, because it's really important for us to lift each other up, especially in the EDM and dance space if you're in that space. So thank you guys so, so much. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to meet y'all in real life or on the screen again soon. Thank you guys. Have an awesome night and a great weekend. Thank you guys. So much fun. Hope you learned something. Hope you had fun. See you guys next time.